We're getting stuck diagnosing our marriages and our men instead of building them and growing together. Terms like feeling unsafe, gaslighting, withdrawal, narcissism, stonewalling, all of these terms come from the clinical world and have seeped into our everyday conversation about our marriages. Now, there are some situations in which they're applicable, but they can't be applicable in every single marriage. And that's what's happening today. We're all just throwing them around willy-nilly as if they apply in every situation. And that is hurting, not helping our marriages. Welcome back to Hi Fam. I'm Avital. I'm here to help you to build a strong family culture. I'm the founder of Hi Fam. I'm the mother of 5. And this channel is all about helping you to create family bliss, to love parenting and to parent from love, and to feel fantastic as a parent, as a mother, as a wife. And today we're focusing on marriage. Now, this is part of a series on how therapeutic, diagnostic, pathologizing, psychology, and pop psychology language seeping into everyday conversations about kids' behaviors, about ourselves, and now about our marriages is actually harming us, and why we need to go back to basics and just talk about things in plain terms, not in constant pathologizing language. And today we're going to focus that on our marriages. How does talking about our marriage as though we are therapists, as though there is pathologies, as though there are diagnoses at every single turn, make our marriages actually more fragile and weak and make us less likely to be able to move forward and move past, hurt and repair and find grace and forgiveness and move on. So let's talk about it. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to this channel. That really helps me out. Hit the notification bell and the like button and feed the algorithm so that I can keep showing up for you with fantastic parenting and marriage content. So let's talk about what's not working. And I'm going to do this through examples because I think that's going to be the easiest way to illustrate what I'm trying to say. I teach a course called Married University, and I have clients from all over the world, and I've helped thousands of couples to build the marriage of their dreams with the partner that they've got, and to end the madness, but not the marriage. And these couples from all walks of life, all over the world, share some things in common. And today I'm going to share 5 of the most common complaints or beliefs or diagnostic labels that women are putting on their marriages when they come to me, and how I think a reframe might be really healthy and helpful. The first one is saying, I don't feel safe. Saying I don't feel safe with their partner during a normal conflict. Now, I have to make this super duper clear. These women are physically safe. We're not talking about a physically abusive partner. And they are using that language to describe emotional safety. They are talking about feeling insecure, feeling unsupported, feeling unseen, feeling underappreciated, and feeling like they can't relax with their partner. Maybe their partner feels unpredictable to them or unreliable in many cases. Like he doesn't come home when he says he's going to come home, or he doesn't always act with integrity, or he's disappointing her, or maybe he gets really aggravated and triggered and maybe raises his voice a little bit or says things in a bit of a sharp, harsh tone that doesn't feel very good. But the word that she uses is unsafe. Now, this reminds me a little bit of how people use violence to describe words that they don't like. And this is part of a larger cultural phenomenon called concept creep. It's when a concept starts by meaning one thing and then it slowly expands to include within it many more things. When we used to say violence, we used to mean physical violence. We used to mean that there was actual impact. Now, often people use the word violence to describe a very assertive argument or threatening or words that are crude or rude or harsh, but there's no physical violence, but they're using that word. When we used to say safe, we also used to mean physical safety. And now it's expanded to mean emotional safety. And even within emotional safety, it's actually expanded further to just mean emotional pleasantness, that I should feel calm and relaxed and happy with you. Women often say, I feel unsafe. The man hears that as you're dangerous. You're an attacker. You're a predator. You're someone who's going to hurt me and harm me physically. And so what this concept does is it actually escalates a normal conflict, a normal argument, a normal misunderstanding between the couple, and it escalates it to a much higher tone, right? It increases the volume so much that suddenly we're talking about something extreme, something scary, unsafe. You're unsafe with me. And that is going to shut down the conversation. So rather than using kind of diagnostic or escalatory language, what we want to do is just say what's actually happening without expanding, without exaggerating, without inflating and ballooning it. Because you can't keep up with that kind of inflation, right? You just inflate the entire conflict and you escalate it to tones that are going to be much more harmful and much harder to come down from. So you might say, when you raise your voice, I feel really overwhelmed. I feel threatened. I stopped listening. You might say, can we take a break and come back to it? You might say, I'm having a really hard time staying calm right now. I want to talk about it soon. You might say, I really don't like it when you use swear words. Can you talk politely, please? But basically, you want to stay with the facts, with the reality, and not put a diagnostic label and spin on it that makes it sound like you've already done the psychological analyzing of him and you are not psychologically safe. The second common one I hear is that he's emotionally unavailable, that he's avoidant. This frames him as broken, as incapable. Now, I get where this comes from. Many times women feel that they want eye contact, that they want physical touch, that they want someone who's going to listen to them actively and deeply and not interrupt them or offer solutions or fixes to their problems. And that feeling that their husband maybe scrolls on his phone or is always out and about or is too busy at work or is just distracted and isn't really focused on getting to know them better, on entering into their inner worlds and really connecting deeply. I get that. But the idea of labeling your partner as emotionally unavailable, again, suggests some kind of damage. Like, oh, you didn't have a secure attachment in your childhood. You're carrying inner child wounds. You have an actual pathology within you that you have emotional brokenness, right? And instead, I would again suggest focusing on the behavior or the need. Many times women say, I just want connection. I need to feel connected. And even that, similarly to the word of safety, is a word that sounds, I think, very vague and ambiguous and almost like gibberish to a man. I think often their husband is thinking, what do you mean connected? We live in the same household. We sleep in the same bed. We have the same children. We have the same bank account. We spend many hours a day together. How could we be disconnected? We are literally like connected at the hip. What are you even talking about? And if instead we use language that was clear and direct, like, I would like to feel physically close by snuggling on the couch, or I would like to have a heart-to-heart conversation where we make eye contact and you ask me about my day, or I would like to put the phones away so that we can eat dinner and just chat. If you make it practical and real and grounded and stay away from the psychobabble, I think you're going to get better results. Quick pause. Can I ask you something? When was the last time you really wanted your partner? Not checked the box, not just cuddled. I mean, felt something. If it's been a while since butterflies and tingles, or even forever, that does not mean that your marriage is broken. It just means that at the moment, the desire is offline. And that's exactly what I help women rebuild inside Desire Lab. It's my ongoing membership that helps you to reconnect with polarity, chemistry, and attraction. No, you don't need to spend big bucks on lingerie, although you're welcome to. You need tools, mindset shifts, and reframes. Why? Because a lot of the noise in culture out there is actually making women like you and me feel resentful or even repulsed by our husbands. I'm going to train your eyes to see those messages for what they are, to detect them, to reject them, and to replace them with the types of thinking that's going to create chemistry, spark desire, and bring back those butterflies and tingles so that you can feel the love and romance that you seek, deserve, and want. And the best part is that when desire grows, everything else in a relationship gets easier. When you have great chemistry, you are going to find that fights about finances or talks about schedules or disagreements about co-parenting just shrink away. Let's put it this way, desire does the heavy lifting. When desire is high, conflict is low. So check out Desire Lab at highfam.com/desirelab or find the link somewhere around this video. If you're ready to really want your partner again, we can make that happen. See you on the inside. Let's get back to the video now. Number 3 is calling normal frustration or taking a break gaslighting. Gaslighting Gaslighting is a real thing, and people who are in abusive relationships know this all too well. Gaslighting is when someone makes you think that you didn't see what you saw, didn't feel what you felt, that they didn't do what they did. They make you think, I must be crazy. Am I imagining it? They make you question yourself rather than questioning their choices and behaviors. And that is cruel and it's awful and it is a sign of abuse, but it's not something that's just happening in day-to-day disagreements. It's not something that you need to constantly search for and, go on a red flag hunt and label, because it's a diagnostic language. It pathologizes regular disagreements as if they're deceptive, as if they're manipulative. The truth is that when couples argue, we often see things differently. We often remember things differently. We often disagree on the sequence of events or on what happens. One person says, I shut the door, and the other person claims, no, you slammed the door. One person says, I was talking in a normal voice, and the other person says, you were yelling. And that doesn't mean that we're gaslighting each other. It doesn't mean that he's trying to make you seem crazy. It means that for whatever reason, whether it's justified or not, whether he's correct or not, he remembers it differently. He perceived it differently. He saw it differently. We all have different thresholds of what we perceive of as yelling or as aggression or as rudeness. These are subjective terms, and we do see them differently depending on what we were used to growing up and our worldview and temperaments. And so it's really important to practice reflective listening instead of just labeling every disagreement as gaslighting. You might say something like, when I tell you that you hurt my feelings and you say that I'm overreacting, I really need you to trust my experience, even if you see it differently. I understand that that wouldn't have hurt your feelings, but it did hurt mine. And I understand that maybe I'm being overly sensitive. That might be true, but it's also true that my initial reaction was to feel hurt by what you said. You might say something like, for me in a conflict, if your voice rises above a certain level, it sounds aggressive. For whatever reason, I interpret that as aggression, as anger, as yelling, and I shrink and feel, a little bit like I can't handle it. And I would like you to be able to please talk in a calmer tone, even when you're angry, or take a break until you can talk in a calmer tone. Number 4, using all sorts of labels like narcissist or toxic instead of setting boundaries around certain behaviors. I've made a whole video on what happens when women sometimes think their husband is a narcissist, even if he isn't. So make sure to watch that after you watch this. But the truth is that these terms feel very final. They have this fixed mindset aspect to them. Like, oh, if I use this term, you can't ever escape it. If you're a narcissist, that's just who you are. If you're a toxic person, then what are you going to do about it? You need to be avoided. And it makes people feel like, well, then just leave me if I'm such a harmful guy, if I'm so awful, if I'm so thoughtless. What do how am I ever going to improve? It kind of is helpful to remember that we try not to do this with anyone else. We try not to label them unless it's really, really useful, unless we really need that label to seek, therapy and get help. For example, a child who's really struggling at math, we don't tell them, oh, you're just slow, you're just incapable, you're just dumb, right? We don't label them that way because we want them to have a growth mindset where they're going to improve. They're going to get better. They're going to try again and try harder and keep coming back until they master it. It might take them more time than other kids, but we know that labeling them in that kind of way would disable them. And I think the same is true with the terms that really stop connection when you label your husband or the marriage. If you say this marriage is doomed, we're incompatible, you're a toxic guy, you're just, a narcissist, those types of things make us feel hopeless, right? And instead, we want to set the boundary for sure, but with warmth, right? It's the high expectations, high support idea. So you say something like, when you interrupt me like that, I feel really disrespected. I need you to wait until I finish speaking. Or when you walk out of the room when I'm talking to you, that really triggers me and upsets me because I'm trying to solve the conflict and I feel like you're giving up and walking away. If you need a break, please say, I need a break. These are ways that we set a boundary. We're warm, we're respectful without labeling a person. And number 5, I notice that often we tend to diagnose our marriage, but we don't have any treatment plan. We focus primarily on the issue, on the problem, on the dysfunctional pattern, on the triggers, but we don't focus on the partnership, on the way that we're going to grow, on the resolution, on the grace, on the forgiveness, on the moving through and moving beyond. Here's the issue. Naming an issue is not at all the same as solving it. People often say that being able to properly diagnose a problem is 50% of the way to the solution. Great, but it's only 50%. The other 50% is actually making changes to your patterns, addressing them, coaching yourself, getting reframes and new mindsets and new communication skills. All of the things I teach, by the way, inside of Married You. It's reigniting desire. It's doing things differently. It's not doing that Einstein quote that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's instead not doing the same thing over and over, not re-engaging again and again in the same patterns and entrenching them into ruts and habits in your relationship to the point where it does become a diagnosis, where it becomes just the personality of the relationship, the character, the defining aspect. That's what we don't want. We want to dislodge it. We want to disrupt it, right? You want to interrupt the pattern and introduce alternative skills and approaches rather than focusing on those faults. What would interrupt that pattern? What could disrupt it? Well, many different things, but one thing is shifting our focus towards building our family culture, what we do want, what we want to create together, why we're here, why we had children, why we built a home, what our partnership stands for, what we stand to offer each other, what we have to give, right? This is about actually talking about division of labor, talking about how we want to run our home, our values, our expectations, our needs, our support system, how we can give to each other, how we can show up better, how we can optimize our lives, and how we can make our marriage work for us. When you shift the entire conversation away from constant diagnosis, analysis, pathologizing, labeling, and you shift it towards shared goals, shared values, a future vision, a mutuality and respect, you're going to find that the marriage thrives, just as we would do with raising a child, just as we would do with our own self-talk, as I've covered in the previous videos. So in conclusion, my strong recommendation is to stop using therapeutic language, psychobabble and psychiatric analysis and all of those labels, and to start focusing on problem solving, on describing reality as it is specifically and depersonalizing it, to address our cognitive fallacies and our skewed ways of thinking, to disrupt dysfunctional patterns and learn to behave in better ways. All of that will actually move us forward towards our goal of a stable, thriving, loving marriage and away from the feeling that we are just trapped in something that is pathological. Now, let me know below what spoke to you the most about this video. Did you agree? Did you passionately disagree? Either way is fine. Just do so respectfully. And I would love to hear from you what you would like me to address next. Meanwhile, make sure to keep on living that high fam life, and I'll see you in the next video.